And welcome to episode 3 of It Came From the Inbox. I bet there are people out there that didn't think we'd make it this long. I was one of them. In an effort to keep up with my crushing, whenever I can get around to it, upload schedule, we're going to be doing things a little differently this time around. We're going to have a double stuffed episode where instead of the usual 3 entries, we're going to be highlighting 6 books that have made their way into our inbox, but sadly, for one reason or another, not onto the site for a proper review. Doesn't mean the books were bad or good. That's up for you to ultimately decide, but because here at Upstream Reviews, we're all about helping out the indie sphere and helping out the independent authors, we want to at least give you guys a little bit of a shout out. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you're not subscribed to the site yet, like over 1,000 other debonair and witty and no doubt attractive individuals have already done, make sure you do that this month, because let me tell you something, it is going to be absolutely packed. You are going to be spoiled for content this month. Not only are we going to have 4 reviews by different titles for Larry Correia, leading us, meaning me, to dub June 2024 officially Correiamania. We've got Gunrunner, Tower of Silence, Destroyer of Worlds, and Lost Planet Homicide are all going to be getting the Upstream Reviews treatment at various points throughout the month. So if you're a Larry Correia fan, if you're the kind of person for whom too much Larry is just not enough, you've got the books, you've got the audibles, you listen to the podcast, you've got the Larry Correia body pillow. I assume you can buy that somewhere. I mean, the internet will sell you any kind of trash these days. You're going to want to swing by the site a lot this month because we've got tons of stuff from Larry Correia. But not only that, we've also got some great indie reviews coming up this month, which include The Last Ancestor by Alexander Helene. That is a fantastic fantasy title. If you haven't checked out Alex's work, you're definitely going to want to check him out. He's fantastic indie talent. The Confessions of a D-List Supervillain by Jim Bernhelmer. What if Tony Stark was just as much of an entrepreneurial genius, but not a trust fund kid? He winds up getting backstabbed by some corpos and left to rot, and basically turned into a supervillain. Sort of a take on that. Very interesting book there. We're going to have a review on that coming up this month in June. And a great short horror suspense anthology by David Brightback called The Walk Home, which is going to be reviewed by Carolyn Furlong. If you're into like quick mysteries, it's 7 stories and only 84 pages. You're going to want to check that out. So we're just going to have a ton of great titles, mainstream and indie. This is going to want to be a month that if you haven't subscribed to the Substack yet, you're definitely going to want to do that. Make sure you head over to upstreamreviews.substack.com and click that subscribe button. In addition to that, I'm very happy to announce that we're going to have a new kind of article making its debut in honor of us also reviewing a great indie title, sort of a semi-legendary indie title, Ctrl+Alt+Revolt by Nick Cole. Is a book with quite a history behind it. Nick Cole is best known for co-authoring the Galaxy's Edge series with Jason Anspach, an absolutely expansive series of books. He wrote a book called Soda Pop Soldier. Soda Pop Soldier, which was sort of Ready Player One if it was really good. It was picked up by a mainstream publisher called Voyager, which was an imprint of HarperCollins, and sold well enough that they contracted him to write a sequel, which was what Ctrl+Alt+Revolt was. Ctrl+Alt+Revolt kind of got into hot water with his agent when they found out that there was something in the book that contained a single instance, and it's not even an important instance necessarily, of mentioning abortion that could be construed as it being presented in a negative light. I don't want to give away too much because Nick actually has a very excellent write-up of the whole thing on his site, which I'm going to link down below. The purpose of the moment in the book is not to make a statement one way or the other on the issue of abortion. It's simply to sort of act as something of an inciting incident, or at least a moment where the villain's motivations are crystallized. It's this one moment in the book. It's never mentioned again. Nick doesn't go off on a tangent or get up on a soapbox to talk about abortion ever again in the entire book. But this one instance was enough for his agent to come back and say, listen, the publisher telling you've got to take this out. Well, Nick didn't take that too kindly. And in no time at all, this profitable, bankable author who had had proven success in traditional publishing with Soda Pop Soldier suddenly found himself completely dropped by his agent, by his publisher, and he had a manuscript that now didn't have a home because he refused to compromise his integrity as an artist and refused to be bullied by his publisher. Long story short, and you should really read the story from Nick's perspective. He does a fantastic job and he tells it very well. The guy's an excellent writer. Nick's plight winds up getting the attention of the aforementioned Larry Correa and gets a huge signal boost in the indie sphere because he wound up independently publishing it. He had to. The book wound up making waves with fans who just made sure to give it the due it was worth. It wound up winning a Dragon Award in the best post-apocalyptic category. So Nick's really been through the ringer as an independent writer, as an artist. He's faced the canceled crowds and came out of it on the other side better for it. And one thing he's always been, despite his successes, he's always been very approachable and done well by other independent authors and outlets. And of course, Nick, when I approached him for this idea for this article, this series of articles that highlight people who have kind of gone through canceled crowds or gone through hard times in their writing careers or careers as artists, he agreed to be interviewed, and he has a lot of really great advice to give. We're going to be posting that interview right around the time that we post our review for Ctrl+Alt+Revolt this month in June. So make sure you keep an eye out for that as well. But a lot of exciting stuff happening ahead. A lot of new stuff we're going to be doing. Upstream Reviews is going in plenty of new places. Make sure it's not just a book review site. It's news. It's culture. It's industry stuff. We want to make sure that we put stuff out that you care, as fans, as writers, and as artists, that you care about. And as always, we want to hear what you think. Don't hesitate to drop us a line. You can reach us at upstreamsubmissions@gmail.com. Shoot us a message if you're on Substack, or of course, we have a contact page at the Substack site. There, you can send us a message there. So without further ado, please enjoy this double-stuffed edition of It Came From the Inbox.
Crossing Over by Paul Clayton. The chaos and violence of the Second American Civil War arrives at Mike McNerney's town when knife-wielding thugs invade his home. He, his wife, and his disabled daughter take to their camper to find refuge in Canada. Along the way, they evade roving criminal gangs and warring militias. They finally reach the border, only to find a large encampment of others, desperate to cross over to safety. With their money almost gone, an unscrupulous immigration official offers to usher them through, but will they pay his obscene price? That is Crossing Over by Paul Clayton. We've actually reviewed this at the site before. I actually personally reviewed it. It's a great story, and actually Paul Clayton is a fantastic writer. We've also reviewed one of his anthologies, Escape from the Future, which was a great collection of short stories as well. The reason it's winding up here is because one of my only criticisms of the book at the time was that the ending felt very abrupt. It turns out Paul also felt that way, and has released a new edition with an additional chapter which ends the book on a much more well-rounded note and much more satisfying ending. Normally, I try to keep my commentary on the titles we feature on the show neutral, but in this case, since I have read it and we have already reviewed it on the site, I feel okay definitely recommending Crossing Over and Paul Clayton's work as a whole. The Catgirl in Pink and Other Short Stories by Edmund Muller. A lonely man meets a mysterious catgirl at a bar. A homeless man ingests a pill that allows him to see past and future. A female cyclist goes missing in a forest. A scientist tries to unravel the secrets of aspartame. These stories and more can be found in this volume. And that was the brief explanation for this pretty quick read. It's only 128 pages for the print edition. I did look at the table of contents on the look-in side, and there are a lot of stories in this, so they seem to be pretty almost not quite flash fiction short, but these are short, quick reads, and it does look like the guy's got quite an imagination. That is The Catgirl in Pink and Other Short Stories by Edmund Muller. Rejected Messages by Evelyn K. Brunswick. Humanity may have rejected previous subtle messages, like the wow signal, but sooner or later, the time will come when rejection is no longer possible. Humanity will be forced to accept the knowledge that they were far from alone in the galactic sector, and will not be able to escape self-examination forever. The longer they leave it, the worse that impending catastrophe will be. For at some point, the final ETI intervention may well be necessary. This ETI hopes that these stories may go some way to making things easier for you when the time comes. Unless these two, of course, are rejected. How this title came to our attention is actually very interesting. I believe there was some sort of a Twitter spat which involved a thread that had been commented on by fairly well-known subversive author Jakob Merkin, who is the creator of, among other things, the Light Unto Another World series, which is an isekai series whose main protagonist is an Israeli soldier, is a member of the IDF. Yuri Omakis, and he wears a yarmulke and everything. He wears his identity on his sleeve. And of course, the world being hopelessly balkanized and politicized as it is, Miss Brunswick had commented on something regarding recent conflicts between Israel and Palestine. And I think I remember somebody in the thread telling her, like, if you don't like this guy's stuff, it's got a pro-Israeli protagonist in it, why don't you go and, like, write your own stuff? And it turns out that she did. And she sent it along to us. And she actually dared us to review it. And I'm not sure if the stories themselves have much of a political bent. I haven't had a chance to read them, but I do know that Miss Brunswick's her feed on X is shot through with pro-Palestinian sympathies. So I can only guess that if there are politics ado in this particular title, that those could very likely crop up as well. And again, I don't know. I really do have to tip my hat to her for actually taking up the challenge. And unfortunately, Miss Brunswick, we didn't get a chance to get around to actually reading it. But since we didn't want to completely ignore it, I figured the next most fair thing to do would be to feature it here and let our viewers make up their own minds about the artistic worth of the work. So, if you would like to read this bit of challenge fiction, you can read Rejected Messages over on Smashwords. It's not very expensive. I think it's only like $2.49. If you really want to check it out, you can head over there. Null and the Void, Volume 1, by BakkaPuppy. He wakes up with no memory and is dropped into an impossibly dangerous game world. With 0 in every stat and a body on the brink of starvation, his only chance to survive and find out who he is will be to improve his stats, unlock new skills, and level up. Null has no name, no hope, no choice, a world full of enemies that want to devour him, and a system AI that is trying to sabotage him. In his words, "Well, go right ahead and just try to stop me." That is Null and the Void, Volume 1, by BakkaPuppy. This is an ongoing isekai lit RPG that is available free to read over at Royal Road. If you are into lit RPGs, into the isekai genre, this seems like something that might be right up your alley. The Highwayman Kennedy Thornwick by Lisa Kuznak. Framed for murder and horse theft, Tommy Phelan is stuck in Mangelock Penitentiary, rotting like a bad pickle in too small of a crock. Instead of getting hanged, he spends his time learning to fight, steal, gamble, and drink. There isn't much else to do with himself, until his best friend and teacher, the notorious highwayman Kennedy Thornwick, confides in Tommy his plans to escape. When Tommy receives a visitor that promises fortune at the expense of a newly built bank, that settles it. He has to help Kennedy. But what Tommy doesn't account for is how much prison has shaped him. And not only will he have to get used to magic outside the walls, but come to terms with who he has become, all while trying to avoid the mage hunters after the price on his head. Kennedy might have been too good of a teacher. This looks really fun. It's a bit on the thick side at 403 pages, but the author really knows how to send a pitch email. It really grabbed me right away. This is flintlock and sorcery sort of a thing. If this definitely seems like something different, if nothing else, and if the description has piqued your interest, go ahead and pick up The Highwayman Kennedy Thornwick by Lisa Kuznak. The World's Other Side by Daniel M. Bensen. George Boatman trained to be a priest, but his people need a criminal. 5 centuries after the mighty Gondwanan civilization conquered the Northern Hemisphere, George leads a band of thieves and smugglers into the Alinwa city of Chicago. It's a bloody job, but his people need him. What George needs is vengeance. Bounce Nakamura didn't expect her postgraduate work to be so demanding. Placed without her consent into a homestay with a bunch of incomprehensible native Eurasian refugees, she does her best to settle in, help out, and pursue George, who has interesting depths. Except it turns out he's killed someone. Now they're all threatened by ruthless drug lords, the local authorities, and international religious extremists. If Bounce doesn't make George choose to save the future, he'll be consumed by the sins of his past. Love, loyalty, and cultures collide in The World's Other Side, an alternate history sci-fi thriller. And that is The World's Other Side by Daniel M. Bensen.
If you have a book you'd like to recommend to us, or one of your own that you'd like to submit to be considered for review, send an email to upstreamsubmissions@gmail.com. Please remember to include a file of PDF, Mobi, or EPUB, or be ready to gift a Kindle on request. And if you want the latest in sci-fi, fantasy, mystery, and thriller, news, reviews, and culture, be sure to check out and subscribe to our Substack at upstreamreviews.substack.com.